I really hope you can hear these tunes, because when I think of Kim Kaupe, I think of a smooth jazz saxophone. Welcome all if you are here. First, let me know if you can hear the tunes, because I just tested this out. Hey, Casimiro, good to see you.
I can hear them.
Good. You can hear them, and you were moving, we were moving. It's got to count for something. But please do hop in the chat. We're here with Kim. I do want to know if you could hear the music. We'll have to find out in the recording. But we're here to chat about one's career capital. Hello, Caroline. Let us know if you could hear the music. A mutual friend of ours, David Nabinski, put us in touch, and he's like, "You got to meet Kim." And I'm like, "I know that name, Kim Kaupe. How do I know that name?" I watched a live of yours probably 18 months ago, Coffee with Kim. If you are not yet a caffeinated subscriber, I endorse. The one at the beginning of January, top notch, by the way. And Kim, you're a fan. I know you're a big fan of Simon Sinek's work and of The Infinite Game. And another friend and big follower of yours, Casey Schendelman, said, "Go check this out." And so I watched your Coffee with Kim talking about The Infinite Game, and we're here. So sort of long story short, we were connected through a mutual friend. We've had a few conversations. I so enjoy following you on the socials, because you are funny, my friend. So enough about Kim. Let's hear from Kim. Hi, welcome.
Hi, and hi to everybody, Caroline and Chris and Mary and Mohammed. It's so great to be with you today. So thank you for taking time. I know you're very, very busy, as are you, Shed. So excited to spend some time together this lovely Tuesday and hopefully dive into some good actionable takeaways that everybody can take away and start implementing today to show up as their best self. So I'm excited to be here.
Love it. Love it. So excited to have you with us in here. And we have confirmation from Chris and Casimiro. We could hear the music. This is very good. This is very good. So Kim, I'm curious about a few things, because I think your story and your journey can help others, because I know your work with Career Capital has been born of your own experience. So I'd love to hear, I mean, I know you spent a lot of time living in New York. I know you've worked on Oprah's team. I'd like, would it serve to sort of say like, all right, here's kind of been my career, and here's where I am now, and here's what I'm doing, and sort of here's some of the things I've learned along the way to get me here to offer your value to others.
Totally. Well, I'll save everybody a Google. You don't have to Google, I'll just give it to you. But for the last 10 years, I have run a marketing agency, and that marketing agency works with celebrities, sports teams, music artists, brands to help them connect with their super fans. And it doesn't matter what you call them. When we work with Target, for example, they like to call all their customers guests. When we're working with a music artist or a sports team, they obviously call all of their customers fans. Mm-hmm. If you're working with a brand, they might call their customers, or they might call their customers family. So it doesn't matter what syntax you use, but essentially what my agency has done the last 10 years is help person A connect with group B to make sure that that relationship is solid, it's growing, and it's accurately reflecting who that person or brand is and what they want to represent. And I noticed something about 2 years ago. I was like, okay, I've been doing this for 10 years, working with exactly everybody from Oprah and Paul McCartney to the New York Mets and Comic-Con. And I realized, this is great. We're helping these artists or talent connect with their fans in meaningful ways. This is so exciting. And then I thought, wait a minute. I know a lot of smart, talented, wonderful people that when I Google them, or when I look at their LinkedIn, or when I see them online, that doesn't reflect how awesome they are. Or when they show up in the workplace, they might be the best person for the job, but they're the last one to raise their hand. They might be the perfect person to lead that team, but they're sitting in the back of the room. And so I really realized, wait a second, hold on, like stop the presses. There are all these amazing founders and executives and CEOs that they're usually it's coming from a really wonderful place. You know, everybody's like, oh, it's the team first. And I think especially as women, we like to put a lot of people before us, you know, oh, it was really a team effort. Oh, I couldn't go. You should really take that opportunity. And it's like, wait a second. When's the lifeboat coming for us? And what I realized is that sometimes my most successful, talented friends were leaving themselves for last. And they weren't necessarily as diligent about taking time for themselves, making sure their LinkedIn was up to date, making sure that they're considered a thought leader in their field, making sure that they're taking on opportunities or honors or awards or positions that really put them at the forefront. They were so busy worrying, which is very sweet, about everybody else that they were kind of put last. And so I kind of started making it my mission, like, okay, I'm going to start to help these amazing humans show up in the way that I know that they should be showing up. And so I've been working on that for the last 2 years, still running the marketing agency. So we're going in tandem with 2 companies at once, but it's been a brilliant start and really deeply resonating with the people that I've worked with, because again, these are really smart founders and CEOs and executives and managers who, when I say this, they're like, ding, ding. Like, yeah, like I have been putting myself last. Like I haven't been paying attention to myself probably as much as I should.
Love this. That's beautiful, Kim. I mean, one, I thought Target would have called their customers bullseyes. That's just where I went.
You would think.
Guests work. But it's great. It's sort of, as you started chatting and started speaking about the Targets and the New York Mets and the Comic Cons, my next sort of natural question in my head, which you answered, was the correlation between a brand and then one's own personal brand. I mean, in the case of Oprah or Paul McCartney, while you are representing the personality of a human being, there are many human beings that go behind sort of the curation and creation of that brand. But I also remember, I mean, I'm an avid follower of your socials just because it's entertaining and wonderful. But when you were most recently in New York, I remember there was an Instagram story you did of one of your friends working and like seeing them and like their utter brilliance, and to sort of match what you experience seeing your friend or just someone wonderful shine, and then having that. And to your point, particularly women or those amongst us who are less willing to put ourselves in the limelight and service in helping others first, which is wonderful. But to sort of have that audio match the video in one's own personal brand, which matters in 2022 and beyond.
I mean, it matters to everyone. Like I said, you know, I touched on it earlier, but really it's your representation or first impression. We can all remember back in middle school, you know, it'd be like, well, you know, Chris, you gotta tuck in your shirt, and Renee, you gotta brush your hair, and you gotta give a firm handshake, and that way they know that you mean business. You're gonna set a good first impression. And that was true for the last 30, 40 years. But what has started happening really in the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, is it has become human habit that before we meet people, we Google them.
Yep.
And I'm sure there might be someone here who's like, well, I don't do that, Kim. I always I'm going to give you 2 examples. Number one, if you have kids or small humans at home, I guarantee you're not dropping your kids off with a nanny, with a babysitter, with a daycare center that you have not Googled, that you have not vetted and said, this tiny human better not be with a serial killer, or this tiny human better not be with somebody who's unsafe. Or if you're like Kim, I don't have kids yet. Okay, you're single. When's the last time you went on a truly blind date? Truly blind date. Like your friend didn't say, oh, I got to set you up with my friend Chris. You know, he works for Morgan Stanley. He's so great. what is the first thing you are doing? You are Googling Chris Morgan
Morgan
Stanley and your
Stanley.
friend, and you're looking him up. And
Yeah.
so what I have told people is that has become very normal in our personal life. Very second nature, very second nature. And what's slowly happening that people are realizing, and they will realize it very soon, is it's leaking into work. It's leaking into our work lives. So you and I were talking offline that you're going to speak somewhere. Okay, most people, when they decide, am I going to go to this event or not? Or am I going to attend this breakout room? Or am I going to attend this keynote? What do? They Google the keynote speaker. They Google, is this breakout room good? Or is this somebody you want to meet with? Same thing. You see 5 people's name on a Zoom call that you're invited to on Tuesday, but one of the names you don't quite recognize. What do? You Google the person. Who's this person joining our meeting? And so as that starts to creep into our work lives, that sort of Google first, what's happening is people are saying yes or no. Yes, I'm going to go see Shed speak, or no, I'm not. Or yes, I'm going to take that meeting with Scott, or no, I'm not, before they ever know you. KNOW. You are getting knowed, NO, before you are known, because people are Googling and they're going, I don't think so. Or this looks interesting. And so while a lot of us have thought, well, my LinkedIn, I can let it gather dust. That doesn't matter. Or who's Googling me? I'm not a celebrity. People are Googling you. Any Seinfeld fans? People are talking. But people are Googling you, and you might not know it. You might, because you're oblivious. If people Google your name, you have no idea. But as that starts to happen more and more, that's when I think a lot of the people that I am talking with a lot, or resonating with, or resonates with my message, realize like, oh man, this Kim girl, she's kind of making some sense.
Yeah.
I guess I have to pay attention to how I'm showing up online. And it's not because you're an influencer or you're some celebrity or whatever. It's basic Google. It's like basic LinkedIn. What are people seeing when your name pops up on a Zoom meeting?
Yeah. Yeah. One, how cool is it that Google is a verb now? To Google entered into the zeitgeist. A mutual friend of ours, Kristen Hadid, taught me GTS, Google that shit, which she usually says to her parents when they ask her, questions that are just so obvious, or like, I don't know, GTS. So know that people are GTSing you. And I mean, there's also one of the things that I've seen and heard from friends from like, oh, like I don't want my personal information out there. And it's like, okay, that's your choice, which is fine, but just know that you're likely limiting yourself to opportunities based on what is in your circle. Or if you're introduced to someone and they want to learn more about you and they GTS your name, and it's like, went to summer camp in Vermont in '97, and you're like, what? It's just like, who is this? So that's just that. And please keep coming in, loving all these comments coming in, especially from LinkedIn user. Love
and
the
I would say,
shout out.
Yeah, I would say if you guys have any questions, Shed and I are here for you too. So I want to make this a group conversation.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things that we limit our opportunities. Exactly what you said. You're not going to get the same opportunities. And again, I always like to give tactile examples because I think sometimes people have a hard time wrapping their heads around it. So like, again, tactile examples. Let's say you have 2 people that you're thinking about to watch your kids. Both of those people are lovely, wonderful, amazing babysitters. But one of them, you can go on care.com. You can see all these glowing reviews. Oh, it's the happy families, whatever. And the next person, you can't read anything about. Like there's just nothing. And you have to make a split decision. Like, hey, you need a babysitter tonight. Like you got to pick someone. You're going to be like, well, this person on care.com has 0 reviews, or like, no, nothing's really going on there. Whereas this person has like a ton of glowing reviews. Like, I got to go here. So, and that's not to say, of course, that person might be a wonderful babysitter and that might be an amazing opportunity. But just know, especially in today's rushed world, everybody's limited on time. Everybody's making quick decisions, moving fast. You limit yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
limit yourself absolutely to the opportunities that are open to you.
I've also heard this same babysitter scenario. Simon Sinek in some of his old keynotes has talked about you have, and we do this when hiring someone as well, where you might have someone with all the requisite skills, but you don't know them, someone who doesn't necessarily have the right experiences, but they have a glowing referral from a friend. However, in that last minute snap decision where you have two people and they're both recommended, who are you going to go with? That person who does have a profile. So though, you know, I know, Kim, we're both staunch advocates of personal relationships and connections. That's huge. And having a brand that, again, I'm also a huge believer of, I don't want anyone to put something on their resume or their LinkedIn or their brand that is a lie. Like, good luck with that, because you're going to have to fake for a long time. I don't think the message you're saying is puff yourself up. I think what you're attempting to do and say, and by the way, having the objective opinion of another, whether it's you or a friend or someone, because we can't read the label on the jar when we're inside the jar, right? Like, I can get away with calling you funny. You can't get away with calling yourself funny. It's like, whoa, who does she think she is? But if I'm like, no, she's funny, like, credibility. And so I think there's something around also like asking for help and sending your little bio description thing to a friend and say, like, does this capture who I am? And they're like, no, you're way better. Use this word. Talk about this experience.
Exactly. And really, to touch on the question that was just asked about red flags on LinkedIn profiles, I would say there's two major red flags that I always catch about people. One, I know it sounds so basic, but have a profile picture. Nobody likes, like, what is it, a weird gray egg? I don't know what it is, but it's like really creepy. So have a profile picture, and don't have a profile picture where it's like shadowy and grainy and it's from 10 years ago and your hair is long in the picture, but now your hair is short. Like, iPhones are great, guys. Like, they take pictures, portrait mode, amazing. Just take a picture on your iPhone, solid light, kind of blank background. It's pretty easy these days, and upload that. I always say the little key I always say is, can it pass the coffee shop test? And what I mean by that is, if I was going to meet you at a coffee shop and I were to glance at that picture going, okay, I'm looking for a Chris. I'm looking for a Chris. Can I find you? Mm-hmm. Is that picture recent enough and relevant enough that I can find you? Because if that picture is 10 years old and I'm going, well, where the heck is this Chris guy? That's not going to work. So that's number one, red flag. And number two, another red flag is, if you are interviewing, if you are looking for a job, if you are going after an opportunity, make sure the dates on your LinkedIn match the dates on your resume. I've seen a lot of people where the dates don't line up, and any small thing like that, the recruiter or the interviewer is going to go, well, are they lying? Either, because one of two things are happening. Either they're lying or they don't pay attention to detail. Yeah. And both of those things are bad. You don't want to be like, oh, this person's sloppy and can't even get their dates right. And you don't want to be branded a liar. So make sure that everything matches if you are interviewing or doing any sort of resume. If you're not interviewing, definitely make sure that is up to date. And also, I could go on and on about this. So I will say, if you go to helpmylinkedin.com, I have a free resource. It gives you like 5 of my biggest changes. Like, if you do nothing else and you just do these 5 things to your profile, it would make a world of difference. It takes probably like 30-ish minutes, like 40 minutes, depending. But yeah, you can just go to helpmylinkedin.com and download that, because poor Shadi's going to be bored to tears if I keep going on and on about all the red flags.
And if anyone could kindly put that, we don't have an ability to go into the chat here. If anyone could put that link in, what is it?
Helpmylinkedin.com.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to get it in there. But if someone could do that, that would be amazing. And by the way, who is this Morgan Stanley, and why is everyone trying to set us up with them? I don't know who they are. Joke. And yes, whoever LinkedIn user is putting in fire here, please let us know who you are if you want to reveal your identity. Love the Seinfeld shout out, taking us back to a time when we didn't need to Google one another. We just used Jerry's descriptions. She's a close talker. She ate her peas one by one, right? That's all you need to know.
Exactly.
Thank you again, LinkedIn user, just winning today. I'm like so keen to hop into LinkedIn and see who you are. The suspense is just wonderful. So, Kim, I know you have your career capital program, and you've defined, like, the way you've defined career capital is, let's see if I can get this right. It's your narrative, your network, and your value, or the
Your
value of
knowledge.
your knowledge. Yes. So 3N sounds: your narrative, your network, and your knowledge. Can you take us through that? And thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, I think, and just to touch on what Alejandro said, it really can bring, when you start paying attention to your narrative, when you start paying attention to how you're showing up online, it can make a world of difference, and it can bring you amazing opportunities. And that's why I always say, like, your narrative is going to get told either way. Like your narrative is out there, because whether it's being tagged in Facebook photos, or maybe registered at an event and they put the guest list online, like, unless you're a secret agent, there's traces of you on the internet. Like, sorry to break it to you, but between Zucks listening to us and your Amazon purchases, like, the internet knows who you are, unless you work in the CIA. And if you do, how the heck are you on our LinkedIn chat right now? I don't know, but the internet knows who you are. So your narrative is getting told either way. So I always say you can either do it by default, which is just whatever the internet shows about you is what it shows about you, or you can do it by design. You can roll up your sleeves and say, okay, if you guys are writing this story about me, you better believe that I'm going to be the editor of my own story. I'm not going to let you jokesters write my narrative for me. And so what this career capital program does is I say, okay, we're going to work together for 4 weeks, and we're going to be in this small cohort of other amazing executives and managers and founders and leaders. And for 4 weeks, we are going to dive in. We are going to rewrite your narrative. We are going to give your LinkedIn a facelift. We are going to work on submitting you for awards and honors and opportunities, and building your community, and luring in these power players in your industry so that they know who you are. And the best example I have of this is, again, anyone who's worked at a really hard job, which I think everybody probably joining us today has worked at a really hard job. There are times where all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, did I eat lunch today? Like, you just kind of like forget to take care of yourself, and you're like, oh my God, I was working so hard, I forgot to eat my lunch, or, oh, I was working so hard, I haven't, given myself a night off in a couple days. And so what I always say is, these 4 weeks are stuff that you should be doing. Yeah. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I know I should be doing that, but you just haven't had time, and you haven't had space, and you haven't had the accountability, and you haven't had the group of amazing humans to be like, no, you are going to show up. Like, you are going to do this. And so I ran my first cohort at the end of last year. It was amazing. The results that we were seeing out of it was, like, even surprising to me. I was like, oh, wow. Just because people immediately got it and just ran with it full force, which has been amazing. So we will be launching that program again in April. So if you're interested in that, you can message me or DM me, or you can look at it on my website. But I just think it's one of those things that, again, it's just kind of digging in and saying, man, I got to roll up my sleeves and do this work, because it's not going to get done unless I make time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to work in a cohort, work in a community where you're getting feedback from one another, and you're like, is this too cheesy? What does this sound? Am I selling myself too short? And I can also personally attest, Kim, because I had the pleasure of being on your Coffee with Kim show last month, probably a month ago to the day almost, and got to connect with many people from your amazing community. So I can attest to the quality of person that comes and joins as well. There's a couple questions that have popped in here, which is great. One from Chris here. With the rise of subs, I don't know if subs also means subscribers, or maybe submarine sandwiches or submarines, follows and subscribers for platform-specific media, what's your recommendation for maintaining your personal agency? Do you understand this question, Kim? I don't fully, but do you?
I think I do, which is
So
always
Chris,
always a
let us know if
mistake. I'm like,
yeah, let us know if we're
let me know
getting
if
it
this is
wrong.
off. But what I think Chris is asking is there's lots of platform specific things you can go out after. It could be LinkedIn, it could be Twitter, it could be Instagram. I mean, there's so many platforms now, your own email list, the LinkedIn newsletter list. You know, there's so many ways you can get follows or connections or subscribers. And so where do you where do you focus? Where does your personal attention go to? I think that's right, Chris. If not, correct me. But if it is, I would say the reflection that I always make is, where are your fish? And what I mean by that is, if you are going to go bass fishing, you're not going to go 3 miles out into the ocean. Why? Because that's not where the bass are. If you're going blue marlin fishing, you're not going to go in a lake. Why? Because that's not where the blue marlins live. So what I always say are, where are your fish? So if you are a fashion brand that works D2C, maybe TikTok makes a lot of sense. That's where a lot of your fish are. If you work in computer sales and you don't do a lot of corp dev and corp sales, maybe LinkedIn makes a lot of sense for you. If you do a lot of coaching and it's a lot of fitness coaching or lifestyle coaching, maybe Instagram makes a lot of sense for you. So I always say, and this is coming from a lazy marketer, I always say, if you want something done, give it to a lazy person, because they're going to find like the fastest, easiest way to do it. Don't worry about everything. Find your fish, go where the fish are, and just do that. I think it's unrealistic when people say, well, you got to have this strategy and you got to have that strategy and you got to be on 8 platforms. No.
Yeah.
Too hard, unsubscribe. You're going to do it for 4 weeks, maybe, and then you're never going to touch it again. So find your fish, figure out where the fish are, and just fish in that little area. And don't worry about anything else.
Nice. You know a lot about fish. Sheesh.
I do.
And you know, it's different if you're, you know, an individual in a career, solopreneur, you know, limited resources. But I love that advice of, well, work, start with the end in mind. Who are you speaking to? Who do you want to attract? Is it recruiters? Is it managers? Is it clients? Is it blah, 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 blah? And then work in reverse. And it isn't necessarily about quantity. It could be about quality, of where do the quality connections live,
Exactly.
on the line. Wonderful. I have another question here from Shannon. A very great practical question, which I know you will provide a great practical answer. Kim, how far back in your work/education history do you recommend including in your LinkedIn profile? I personally get a hoot out of people who are very senior in their career, and I go to their LinkedIn profile and they've only had one job. It's senior vice president of whatever. And I'm like, how did you get there? You weren't just born and you were senior vice president. So maybe it's a different answer for different people, but I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
This might seem like a cop-out answer, but it's not. It's what I like to call a choose your own adventure answer, because neither one is wrong. It's just it's a choose your own adventure. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So the first school of thought is, well, list everything. And why do we list everything? Because as this LinkedIn user just said, I share the same alma mater with you, Shed. Listening keenly, great topics, and follow. When you list everywhere that you've ever worked or go to school, this happens. People say, well, I went to the University of Florida. Well, I worked at Condé Nast. Well, I used to work at Peloton. Well, I used to, and even if it's somewhere you worked, I'm a perfect example. I have not worked at Condé Nast since 2011. And I still, to this day, get people reaching out being like, I used to work at Condé Nast, or I currently work at Condé Nast, or how funny, because people are looking for that bridge. So even though I haven't worked somewhere since 2011, and obviously it's 2022, it's 11 years later, people are still referencing it. So that's one school of thought. Just list everything, because you never know how you're going to find that common connection. So that's kind of one school of thought. The other school of thought is list what's current and what's relevant. So obviously, during, whether you want to call it the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle, it's people leaving their jobs. Yeah. It's people waking up and being, man, do I not like it here? I got to get out of town. So I have friends who are saying, you know what? I woke up, I've been working in finance my whole life, but you know what? Dang it. I don't like this very much. I want to go work at a fitness studio. And you're like, what? You're trying to go from finance to fitness. What the heck? But let's say they used to volunteer and teach certain classes or whatever. So you can incorporate things that maybe were from a long time ago or maybe were kind of secondary because it's part of, again, a new narrative.
Yep.
Shameless plug. It's part of a new narrative that you're trying to tell. Hey, I'm not just this corporate finance person. I'm also into the wellness world, or I'm also into the fitness world. So there's no right or wrong answer. In that way, it is very much a choose your own adventure. So I know that's a little hard, Shannon, but hopefully that helps give you some context, and just know that you can't go wrong either way.
I think that's the key word, Kim, is context. Context is everything. So, I don't think you need to include grade 3 honor roll, babysat when I was 14, unless, of course, that is somehow relevant. And if you're not sure, ask a friend, ask someone who might know, and don't have their opinion be fact. Know that it is but opinion. But there's a lot of gray in that answer because there's a lot of gray in that question. But I think context is key, so that's really good. The other thing, sort of building. Here's another question from Chris, but I know, Kim, I at least have a strategy with these LinkedIn Lives, and it might be similar to yours, or I make up a story that it is, or maybe it's not. But by the way, here's Chris's follow-up: building content in non-specific platforms and pushing it there. So we'll get to that in a second, Chris. But I recall it was last August for me. I know you've been at this LinkedIn Live game for longer than I have, and you do a wonderful job, you and your team. But I sort of, it was last summer, and I'm like, I'd love to do a podcast. I know such amazing people in my network. I'm working on this book called Speak Up Culture. I want to speak about amazing leaders that nobody knows who are doing this work and I admire. And I went, podcast seems like a lot of work, but I have a LinkedIn following and I love having live conversations. Why don't I just do this? I'll record them and maybe later I'll use it for a podcast, or I won't. But now I all of a sudden have a live podcast show. And so that was like, for me, of like, I don't have the time, team, or resources yet to invest in a podcast, but I'm just going to do this because it's fun. I hope it's valuable, and I'll get the recordings. And if I want to use them later, I won't ask Kim's permission. I'll just post it online and say, look at this pod. No, I'm kidding. But that's just something that I've done. I'm curious if that's a similar thought that you've done with your lives.
My live story takes a few twists and turns, but I'll give you sort of the rough version. So I realized this was back in like 2019. Obviously, I feel immense privilege to get to work with names like Oprah, like Paul McCartney, like Taylor Swift, like the New York Mets. And I was realizing, like, wow, I am sitting at tables. Like, I pinch myself sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe they let me in this room. Like, I can't even believe I'm in this room. And so I would go to brunch, or I'd go to coffee with a friend, later that week. And I'd be like, oh my God, you'll never believe it. Like, I was sitting in the room with, Justin Bieber's manager. And I'd say, like, and here's this thing he recommended, or they made this point that I thought was really good. And my friends would often get really excited. They'd be like, oh my God, they're using that, or he's doing that, or that's so cool. And I realized, like, and then they would ask questions back to me. They'd be like, oh man, well, like, what do they do when they think about this? And so sometimes what I was doing is I was actually like acting as a go-between. I'd be like, that's a really good point. I should ask them that next time I talk to them. And I would talk to them, and I was kind of playing this weird game of telephone tag. And I thought, well, let me just put these on my Instagram. And so I was doing like these 1 minute, every single Monday, I'd post a 1 minute video of like, I wouldn't necessarily like spill the beans because I'm under NDA with a lot of these people, but I would give like, I wouldn't have credited. I'd be like, here's an interesting tip that I picked up. And I wouldn't say like, this came from so-and-so. I would just leave that part out. Yeah. And so, but then I realized, wait a minute, it's one way. So again, I was getting all these comments underneath like, well, what's this question, or what's this follow-up? And I thought, well, this is ridiculous, because now I'm just playing the go-between between me and, Alex Lieberman from Morning Brew, when people have a million questions about how to start a content platform. And so that was really when the LinkedIn Live was like, well, let me do this every single Wednesday, and we'll all have a seat at the table. We'll all be able to ask the questions. And so what I really did is I was like, let me take my network and the amazing resources and networks and leverage that I have and bring them in. And unlike, a wonderful podcast, I love me a good Tim Ferriss as much as the next guy. But yeah, there are some times where I'm listening to Tim's podcast and I'm like, oh, you missed that follow-up question, Tim. Like, why didn't you ask that? And so what I realized with these lives, what I could do is I was like, hey, if you have a follow-up question for Shed, ask it.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing here? Like, if you have a follow-up question, you ask it. So it really kind of, for me, switched this whole concept of like, well, why am I the only one getting access to these people? Why am I the only one with this exclusivity? Like, we should all have it and share and copy people's homeworks that are smarter than us.
Love it. Love it. And I highly recommend, because Kim has all of them on her website. So go to kimkaupe.com. Jim Quick, Dory Clark, my friend Leanne Davey, tons and tons and tons of amazing people.
Yeah, she's tomorrow.
Oh, Leanne's tomorrow. Amazing. Leanne is live tomorrow. Leanne was my first boss's boss.
I love that. Yeah. If anyone's interested, you can go to getcoffeewithkim.com and sign up, and we'll give you like a calendar link and a reminder and all this stuff. But yeah, we have some definitely. Dory Clark is in a couple weeks. We have Vanessa Edwards next week, who's like an amazing. She's a new book out. Really great people coming down the pipeline.
Awesome. Awesome. Dory Clark is amazing. She's the author of The Long Game. And Leanne Davey is wonderful when it comes to using conflict as a superpower, which Kim and everyone is going to learn a lot about tomorrow. So check that one out. I flashed this question up from Chris, but we didn't answer it. Building content in non-specific platforms and pushing it there. Again, this question is above my pay grade, but it is not above yours, Kim. So if you have anything smart to say it.
I would just say, again, Chris, like, find the things that you like talking about, whether that's sales, whether that's Bitcoin, whether that's like HR topics, whether that's conflict, like we just talked about, whether that's entrepreneurship. And you can always pick a broad subject, but you're right. Different platforms, a TikTok is going to be like, okay, we need it to be under 30 seconds and it needs to be short and pithy and quick and fast. Whereas, LinkedIn maybe can be a little longer, or people have a larger attention span. And maybe on Instagram, it needs to be more visual because obviously there's like a picture attached to it. So I would say, you can pick the topic areas. How those topic areas represent themselves might look a little different on each platform, but the topic areas can stay the same. You can say, hey, no matter what, I talk about sales or fitness or conflict or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Psychological safety. And if you're in finance, but you love fitness and you want to do more fitness, you can add that hashtag. You're allowed to morph and grow and reflect that in what you put out into the world as well. What is your favorite Seinfeld moment and why?
Oh man. I love the Pez dispenser episode.
I just sent that gift to someone yesterday.
That's a nice one.
Nice. The sea was angry that day, my friends, like an old man trying to send soup back in a deli. We are landing this plane. So if there's a question you've not yet asked Kim about any of the things, last call for Kim Kaupe questions.
Last call for alcohol.
Hey, easy. NSFW. Kim, anything we've yet to discuss that you feel is important that we discuss before we say ta-ta for the day?
Yeah, I would say, what would you say is another superpower? Oh, this is a good one. But I would also say, if I could give like everybody a homework assignment from today, if they could just take away like one thing, it would be to set up career-specific goals for yourself and actually put that in the calendar. I think a lot of times we get really excited about vision boards and Pinterest mood boards and I want to make $1 million and I'm going to be the CEO. But kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like, how are we working backwards from that? So I love a good analogy. If our end goal is an apple pie, we need a grocery list. We got to go to the store. We got to get the flour. We got to get the sugar. We got to get the apple. So, and you got to make time to go to the grocery store. You got to make time in your calendar to get in the car and get your butt to the grocery store. So what I would love to see everybody do is whether it's an hour or 2 hours, maybe it's once a month, maybe it's once a quarter, I don't know, whatever works for you. Set aside time to actively do something about those big goals and big vision board dreams that you have, because it's unfortunately now we're all so busy. We have friends, we have family, we have our jobs, we have our kids, we have our spouses, we have so much stuff going on. If we don't make time for it, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's like cleaning the garage or cleaning the closet. It's always on the to-do list, but it kind of never gets done, but it's still there. And that's what can happen with our vision boards. Like we have I want to move up in my job. Yeah, I want to start that side hustle, that company, but it doesn't really happen. So set aside actual hours in your calendar, block them off, make a meeting with yourself to go after those goals.
Love it. 2 book recommendations on that. One, I've read half of it. The other, a friend told me about it, because the number of book recommendations I get, Kim, I don't know about you, and I'm just like, I'm not that good of a reader. So like, send me a 6-minute video clip, or like, just tell me about it. So one that I hear is good is called Atomic Habits. I think it really breaks it down into small, so you're making just a little bit of progress every single day. So Atomic Habits, I hear, is good. The other one that I can attest is actually very good, because I've read half of it. And I just interviewed Michael Bungay-Stanier a couple weeks ago, is his book, How to Begin, which helps people identify a worthy goal, and that which he describes as daunting, thrilling, and important. Because how many times have we also made these huge, big goals that like remain these huge, big goals that we don't really do much with. And so he's written an amazing book on helping to clearly define a worthy goal, commit to it, and then build a community of people who will help you get there. And Casimiro recommends it as well. I think this is a really sweet way. I think this is Nathan Ho, but I affectionately refer to Nathan as LinkedIn user. We'll help you change those LinkedIn settings. I've mentioned this about you, Kim, but I'm not going to answer this about myself. I'll mention this to you. So I think what I love about you, Kim, and how you show up is you don't pretend to show up like you figured everything out. Like you are a learner. You're a learner, and you I think there's like, you could go out in the world and I'm polished and I figured it all out, and that's just like not you. You're fallible. You're willing to admit your mistakes. You're willing to make yourself the brunt end of a joke, to just make you and learning and everything just more accessible. And it's the thing that draws me to you is your humor, because you're funny. And just, you don't need to figure it all out to make progress and to go. So that's my answer for you, Kim.
I like it. Well, I think my answer for you would be that I really appreciate how you show up as your whole self. So people didn't get to see this, but before we went live, you're talking about work, you're talking about travel, you bring your whole self to work. And I think in today's day and age, a very separate, like, this is the face I show to the world, but like, this is the true me on the inside. You don't seem to have that in a really wonderful, authentic way. So that would be my answer for that.
Thank you. It has me be successful with some people and not successful with others, and that's okay. If there's such a thing as having your people and some people who just aren't your people yet. So there you have it.
You can't please everyone. If you try to please everyone, you'll please no one.
But you can please a lot of someone's, which is why I'm a big believer not of demographics, but of psychographics, of finding people who believe what you believe. Love it. Kim, this has been such a treat. I know, again, you have a program coming up, the Career Capital program, the cohort. How can people learn more about that? Anything else you want the LinkedIn world to know before we hang up here?
You can go to careercapitalcourse.com. So that would be a great resource for you. But I would also say, like, if you just connect with me or follow me or whatever word we're using for these social internets, I'll be talking about it. So like, you'll see it. And I would say, if for you that's LinkedIn, great. I'm over here on LinkedIn. If for you that's Instagram, great. It's super easy to find me. You just start typing in Kim Kardashian. You start typing in KIMKA, and then instead of the R for Kardashian, you type in a U. I'm actually right under her. So I always joke that like you're going to see one Kim K who's like half naked, and you're going to see one Kim K that has all of her clothes on. And if you see the one with all of her clothes on, that's me. So that's how you can find me over on Instagram. But I'm on all the platforms.
Look for the clothes if all else fails.
Look for the clothes.
So good. This has been such a treat. I knew I would have fun. I knew I would laugh, and I hope that you both have laughed and learned with us today. Kim.
Yeah, thank you to Justin and Shannon and Casimiro and Ari. Oh my gosh, you guys have been so fun. And if there's any questions that we didn't hit up, let us know.
Yeah, please. And hi, Ari. So good to see you. The recording will be here, Ari. Fantastic. I'm going to do that thing and give us an outro because we can. Thank you again, Kim, for joining us. Have a great Tuesday afternoon, everyone. Make it a great one.
Bye.